Hi, Tracy Brown here, and I want to welcome you to Spiritual Practices That Work. I'm really excited to share this show with you and to have a deeper conversation about spiritual practices, what they are, how we can use them, how they can support us achieving our goals and living a life we love. I want to give you a little preview of what to expect when you dial in and listen to Spiritual Practices That Work. I've really designed the show to be a support to people who want to live in a balanced way, who are ready to recognize and honor their connection to spirit, people who want to expand their toolkit of spiritual practices, and those who are looking to integrate their spiritual beliefs into their daily lives, how they live every day. So if you want to experience inner peace, and if any of those factors are resonating with you, you are absolutely in the right place. What you can expect every week is that I will have a conversation with one or a few guests about applying spiritual practice in the real world. We're going to move it way out of theory and hypotheticals, and every week bring the conversation into, okay, wait, spiritual practice, that's really good, but what does it have to do with this real life situation or this real desire I have to expand in my own life? There will also be a recommended resources segment that features someone sharing books or other resources that have helped them along their own spiritual journey, or maybe suggestions, things that they know they frequently recommend to others. And third, in every week, there'll be a Spiritual Practices Makeover segment. That's right, I said makeover. So I've invited a group of people to send me emails describing a situation where they would like to apply spiritual practice, or describing some goal they would like to achieve and integrate spiritual practices into their achievement of that goal. So I am loving the idea of doing a makeover on spiritual practices, and I'll tell you later in the show how you might send your email if you'd like to be featured in the Spiritual Practices Makeover segment. So those are some of the things that you can expect in every show, and sometimes we'll also include a spiritual practice or a spiritual practice homework assignment that you can do in your own time, in your own way, and then give us feedback about. So that's what you can expect with Spiritual Practices That Work. Some of you may be saying, well, who is Tracy Brown and why is she qualified to do this show? Well, I don't really know if I'm qualified to do the show, but I will tell you that one of the reasons I'm so passionate about spiritual practices is that for more than 25 years, I have experimented with all kinds of ways to go beyond rhetoric, to go beyond the theory of spiritual practice, and to find ways to integrate my commitment to spiritual practices into a very, very busy life. So I work with successful, busy, driven people who understand that spiritual practices can be their secret weapon for achieving their goals. I am a licensed practitioner in Centers for Spiritual Living, and I do coach people all over the country with how to integrate spiritual practices into their daily lives and to resolve issues, to achieve goals, and to simply live a life that is fabulous in every way. So I hope this gives you a little bit of a heads up, and now I just invite you to relax, listen in, and participate in spiritual practices that work.
It's time for you to master your psychic and mediumship skills. Jennifer Farmer will show you how to develop and fine-tune your psychic and mediumship abilities during an incredible one-day psychic and mediumship development class. Jennifer will show you how to access this amazing resource and how to apply it to all areas of your life. Through her unique teaching style, you'll recognize which gifts you have and which is the strongest, how to use meditation to live a more intuitive and conscious life, how to strengthen your link to divine energy, how to improve your connection to the the spirit world, and much more. All levels of experience are welcome. Seating is strictly limited to only 20 students, so make your reservations now. Class is held Saturday, July 21st from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the First Community Bank Community Center in Richardson. To register, go online to jenniferfarmer.com and click on calendar. Don't miss this powerful day filled with energy and enthusiasm, taught by one of America's leading mediums. Reserve your space now at jenniferfarmer.com. Just click on calendar.
Built on the premise that one person can make a difference, Tough Angels assist in creating safe havens for women and children of violence in developing countries, providing to help educate them and support them in restoring dignity, hope, and healing. And you can help by participating in the Tough Angels Wedding Ring Project. Repurpose old wedding rings, jewelry, rings, whether broken or missing parts. Through a unique arrangement, Tough Angels can receive full refinery price, making your donations go even farther. To mail your old jewelry, visit their website, toughangels.org. That's toughangels.org. Or call them at 303-880-8086. That's 303-880-8086. toughangels.org. One person can make a difference. Visit them at toughangels.org.
Career consultant and life coach, Maureen McDonald has helped hundreds of individuals and families navigate a job loss, career transition, or job search in this difficult economy. And she can help you too, whether it's adjusting to leaving the military and entering civilian life, just graduating college, or simply reinventing yourself. She can work with you locally or via Skype. Her services also include interview prep, professional resumes, cover and follow-up letters, and much more. To get Maureen working for you, contact her at 817-449-5800. That's 817-449-5800. Once again, 817-449-5800. Or you can email her at mcdonaldmaureen16@yahoo.com. Give your career that extra edge. Call Maureen McDonald today at 817-449-5800. Where will you find tarot, angel card readers, psychics, clairvoyants, healers, dreams, feng shui, past life, aura photos, and much more. Only at the Dallas Psychic Fair, the oldest and largest psychic fair in North Texas. Admission's just $7, plus there's a $2 off coupon online. All readings are $15, and you can pre-book and prepay for your readings on the Dallas Psychic Fair website. You'll find complete details plus a $2 off admission coupon on their website, DallasPsychicFair.com. That's DallasPsychicFair.com. Simply the best since 1979. Presented by Enterprises.
Hi, I'm Tracy Brown. Please join me here on Spiritual Journeys Radio Network for Spiritual Practices That Work. Together, we'll experience inner peace, we'll learn how to be calm in a crisis, recognize and honor our connection to spirit, and so much more. So join me here on Spiritual Journeys Radio Network. If you are ready to attract what you want and release the rest, I'll see you right here, Tuesday evenings, 9 p.m. Central.
Many paths, only one destination. Spiritual Journeys Radio Network.
You are welcome here. You and your children. You and your children's children. Oh yes, you are welcome here.
When I say I help busy, successful people use spiritual practices as their secret weapon for living a life they love, the number one question I get is, what do you mean by spiritual practices? So I thought it might be helpful to begin the show by having a conversation with the wise and wonderful Reverend Chris Terry about spiritual practices and what they mean and how you use them. So let me tell you a little bit about Reverend Chris. I like to describe Chris Terry as 50% scholar, 50% court jester, and 100% heart. In other words, she's very smart. She's a lot of fun, and she is extraordinarily loving. Reverend Chris is currently the spiritual leader of Heartspace Spiritual Center in Dallas, Texas. And that's a non-religious spiritual community that comes together to grow, celebrate, and discover a new way to live. But most important, Reverend Chris and her partner are the proud and happy parents of a beautiful baby girl whose name is Micah. Thanks for joining me today, Reverend Chris.
It's my pleasure.
So in our conversation today, I'm hoping to focus on two things, maybe three. What do we mean by spiritual practices? What are some examples of spiritual practices? And, why bother? I mean, what's the benefit of spiritual practices? So let's start with this. How would you answer the question that I get asked all the time? What do you mean when you say spiritual practices?
Well, all right, Tracy. So, I was kind of thinking about this morning, and anything can be a spiritual practice. So let me just start out with conceptually, what are we talking about? I think most spiritual traditions would agree that there's an everyday awareness that we have based on our five senses, maybe based on our reasoned thought. And then there is, in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, there's a great line that says, deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. And so we can call it God, or we can call it a supreme reality. We can call it the great odds. It doesn't matter what we call it. But there is this other reality with a capital R that we have access to. And the way that we access that is to engage in these things we call spiritual practices, because they turn us inward to the point where we have that internal awareness of ultimate reality. And the more we engage in those spiritual practices, the more that reality with a capital R permeates our everyday awareness. Does that make sense?
Oh, that makes so much sense. And it's so, it makes it clear, especially in the way you started. Anything can be a spiritual practice, but what you said also ties it into, it's just a path. It's just a pathway to be really in connection with the divine.
Right, and I think one of the things that makes clear is that if you think about it in terms of the destination being assured, then you have choices about the path. And some people might prefer to row a little boat, and other people might prefer to hike, and so our method of travel, we get to have some choice about. Now, the major spiritual traditions, they have some in common. But what we know now that we have access to, well, what did this tradition mean and what did this tradition mean? Because we have a more global view, what we can see is that there's this core purpose, but many ways to get there.
Are you saying that there's more to spiritual practice than meditation and prayer?
Praise God, yes.
I only say that because that's what I get more often than not, that people will come back to me when I mention spiritual practices with, well, of course I know what spiritual practice is. You meditate or you pray. And I say, and they're like, and what?
Right. So, yeah, I would say that meditation and prayer are two of the most well-known. Now, in our culture, because Judeo-Christian ideas have permeated our culture, prayer is often one of the first ideas that come up. And then, starting, let's say, 40 years ago, there was an influx of Eastern teachers and Eastern schools of thought, and so there has also begun to permeate the culture the ideas about meditation. Now, the thing about it is I am a better paddler than I am a climber. And so what I mean by that, metaphorically, is that there are some spiritual practices that come more naturally to me and some I have to work a little harder at. And to follow up with that, there are two schools of thought. Start with what's difficult for you, or start with what you can have some success at. And so to take that a little bit further, for me, one of the most natural spiritual practices for me is service, right? Because what service does is brings me in touch with that inward sense of givingness that I associate with the ultimate reality, or God.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I always refer to myself as the original short attention span theater, in that I'm highly distractible and prone to flights and fancy and silliness and spontaneity bordering on impulsivity. And so the discipline of meditation does not come as naturally to me. And so that's one that I engage in both of those, service and meditation. And with service, it comes naturally, and so my practice of it is easier. With meditation, I have to actually practice it to get any sense of mastery around it. And I'm glad that I know that those are both spiritual practices, because if I were left to think that just this narrow thing called meditation was, I'd feel unsuccessful, and I don't think that's particularly helpful. So I think the degree to which we broaden our interpretation or our understanding of what a spiritual practice is, we enlarge our capacity to feel successful. And I think when we feel successful at something, we desire to do it more.
That's great, Chris. So I'm imagining that there's more than one or two listeners who are thinking, how could service be a spiritual practice? So could you just talk a little bit more about what that looks like when you approach service as a spiritual practice?
Sure. Let's go back to the idea of what a spiritual practice is. It orients us toward that ultimate reality or higher reality that we associate with a spiritual life. For me, one of the fundamental attributes of God is givingness, right? And so there is that within me that when I practice givingness in the form of service, I am aligning with that higher reality. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in the Hindu tradition about the yogic path of service. And what that says is that we serve not out of a desire to get anything in return or to reap benefit, but we serve because we know that all service ultimately serves that ultimate reality or God. And so it's where we do things from and not necessarily what we do. I'm a big, I love to hold doors for people. And when I hold a door open for someone, I am honoring and holding sacred their presence on the planet as an expression of the divine. So does that make sense? It's where I'm doing it from. Now, I don't need for them to say thank you. I don't need to be acknowledged. It's the act itself that puts me in touch with that quality of the divine that is givingness.
I love that, and I think it's very helpful. I know when I was being raised, as a child, my parents and my church community, in fact, had a big focus on service. So I immediately made that connection. But I know it's really hard for a lot of people who do think that spiritual practice is only meditation or prayer to see that, it's what's underneath. It's your intention. 4 people could be doing the same thing, but for 4 different reasons. And if your intention is about being of service, if your intention is coming from a place of connecting with spirit, then absolutely whatever you do can become a spiritual practice done on a regular basis.
Yes. So I have another example that's coming to mind from my own life. I have my entire life, I'm sort of driven by curiosity. I love to learn. I love to discover new things. And, I just thought it was just something about me. I just like the acquisition of new information. But when I probed that within myself, what I realized is that when I study, which study is another spiritual practice, all of my studying ignited in me this sense of wonder and life, just that feeling of being alive, like something lights up inside of me. And so what I now know is that an essential quality of the divine is life. So the practice of studies for me ignites that and puts me in touch with that. And so it moves me inward to, again, that place of ultimate reality. Now, the interesting thing there, Tracy, is that we talked about intention being important. And clearly, there was a deeper intention that I was not necessarily aware of. And yet, even without that conscious intention, I came to realize that study was a spiritual practice for me.
That just makes me think about the number of times in my life, too, where something that I did or do almost like naturally or innately, I don't really think about it, or I don't really work at it. I just know I enjoy it. And then as my spiritual maturity grew, I began to see the connection that something that I always have done was really, it's so enjoyable because there was a connection deep down that it was a spiritual practice, but it was unintentional.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think where this relates to the larger topic of what you're exploring here is that I think a lot of us think, well, there's something innately spiritual about me, or we would say that we're spiritual but not religious. And there's this other part of ourselves that stands outside and says, well, but you don't meditate and you don't pray. And so you're incongruent or inconsistent or a hypocrite or something. And the truth of the matter is that when you view your life as a spiritual experience, it invites in the possibility of exploring what that means for you and all the different ways that you can experience it. For example, I know this woman who, it's that, the really sort of on fire dancing. It's not ecstatic dance because you do it with a partner. It's, is it tango? No, it's not tango. There's another name for it. It's really hot right now.
There is tango that, but it's not that. It's not salsa. And it's not.
Yeah, it's salsa. That's it.
Oh, okay.
So, you ever watch the faces of the people who are really good at it and do it all the time? And they are having an experience. They are having a real experience. And that's a spiritual practice. When you get in touch with that quality of living or quality of life, that's a spiritual practice. At least that's my way of thinking about it.
So in some ways, anything you do with full passion and commitment, if you're doing it on a regular basis and getting out of your ego and simply living it 100%, being with it, it could be a spiritual practice.
Exactly.
So from now on, beginning today, you heard it here first, my roller skating is a spiritual practice.
Absolutely.
Actually, I'm laughing because I have said that to people a number of times, when they're like, you roller skate twice a week? And I'm like, yeah. And if I lived in Chicago or someplace where I could skate 4 or 5 times a week, I probably would, because when I am doing it, it's not the social experience, 95% of the time. It is more for me that, like runners talk about getting in the zone or having a runner's high and blocking out everything else and being fully present to life. It's like that's what I'm doing most of the time when I'm skating, and I just get pulled out of that if someone, falls right in front of me or gets too close where I have to be a little defensive. So,
I think that's really important, because one of the things that I believe about spiritual practice, and see, back in the day, we thought that it was just those couple of spiritual disciplines that allowed us to do this. But a prayer fully prayed, a meditation fully experienced, a doingness in our life that we're fully present for. You called it in the zone, and I think that's a good way to describe it. Something happens, and it's that the present moment becomes very spacious, and everything else just sort of floats into the background, so we're completely present. And, I don't think it's any accident that we often call the divine a presence.
Right.
Because we can only experience it in a present moment. If we shift it and think about it, then we're thinking about the divine. But if we are in the present moment, and that's ultimately what happens when you're in the zone, or when you have a good meditation practice or a dedicated one, or a good prayer practice, everything else recedes and you become present moment aware. And life becomes very spacious and, well, for lack of a better way to say it, eternal.
Yeah, eternal and in this moment at the same time.
Exactly.
I love that. And so I think, dance is one example, and there are all kinds of forms of dance that people can lose themselves in and, go to or use on a regular basis. We both know lots of musicians who, some musicians are musicians to entertain, but we both know lots of musicians who just the process of creating that is for them their spiritual practice, whether they're getting paid, whether they're performing or not. Right. The music itself, creating and being in the music. In a more traditional sense, when people think of meditation and prayer, actually going to a weekly service, whether it's on Sunday or in the Islam tradition, that might be on Friday afternoon, or in the Jewish tradition, Saturday evening, but going to a weekly service as a practice, not out of guilt, not out of obligation, but as a practice, for me, I know, has become a spiritual practice that's very meaningful in terms of exploring together with other people this spirituality.
Right. Yeah, I think it's, if you look to the wisdom of Buddhism, in Buddhism there's the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha.
Right.
And so the Sangha is the community of practice. And
exactly.
I think what being in spiritual community together does, and let me preface it by saying I think we are built for each other. So I think there is something pre-programmed, or whether you want to call it pre-programmed or it's evolved this way within us, that leads us to be in community together. And so,
yes.
So there is a deep satisfaction to have a community of practice and to meet regularly or be in shared physical space with our community of practice. The other thing is there's something really powerful about practicing with other people. And I think from the Christian tradition, we hear that where two or more are gathered. Mm-hmm. But there's just, if you've ever, in my experiences, when I meditate with other people, I'm able to go deeper. When I am in a place of enjoyment with my interaction with other people, I am able to be more present. So spiritual communities afford us sort of miracle grow on practices when we show up for it. And I also think that, were you going to say something?
Go ahead.
Well, and I think that ultimately we embark on the spiritual path because there is that deep down notion or suspicion or intuition that there's something more. And one of the things I know for sure is that there's more joy than sometimes we remember. And I'm a person who finds joy with other people. And so when I am aligned with joy, I am enlarging my spiritual experience. So, and as we're talking about this, Tracy, I don't want anybody to think that there's not value, or I want to re-emphasize that there is value in what we used to call spiritual disciplines, because some things require discipline, or that kind of has a bad word or sort of a negative connotation. Maybe it's that they require commitment. So for me, I don't wake up in the morning yee-hawing that I'm going to sit down and do a 15-minute meditation practice. But I wake up and I realize, I know from experience, the benefit of sitting down and quieting my mind. And so I do it because I know its value. And I may not always want to do it, but I do it because I know that there is going to be, it's going to open up that present moment awareness for the whole rest of my day.
Right, and there is, that's the good side of discipline, that I'm doing this as a regular practice because I know it has a bigger benefit, even if I can't feel it right here in this moment.
Right.
And I think you're giving us a reminder that of what you said, a few minutes ago at the beginning of the conversation, that sometimes there are practices that we choose to do because we know they're good for us, or we know they're expanding us, and they may not always be the ones that are the easiest for us to do. So this is a really great context setter. This conversation is a really great context setter for the show, Spiritual Practices That Work, because as we go through the process, and each week when our listeners dial in, the opportunity to expose many different ways to integrate spiritual practice into our lives is what this show is all about. So thanks, Chris. This has been perfect for getting us started on a conversation about spiritual practices, what they mean, and why we should do them. Before I let you go, I really would appreciate it, and I'm sure some of our listeners would appreciate it, if you would just let them know how they can learn more about Heartspace Spiritual Center. Where can they find you on the internet? Something like that.
Sure. Well, our website is heartspacedallas.org, heartspacedallas.org, and we don't call it a Sunday service, we call it a Sunday experience, because there is a spiritual practice called visioning, and as we visioned this spiritual community into being, it became clear that we were seeking to be something different. It was seeking to be something different. So we call it our Sunday experience. And our Sunday experience begins with a meditation at 11 o'clock, and then we have that Sunday experience, our regular gathering with the message and the music at 11:30. Our location is actually right in the heart of Lakewood, the Lakewood area of Dallas, and you can get a map and all that good stuff at our website.
And for people who are not in the Dallas-Fort Worth community, I want to encourage you to like the Heartspace Dallas Facebook page, because there's always inspirational messages and things to think about, and you can engage with the Heartspace community wherever you are in the world by connecting on Facebook.
Well, thank you, Tracy Brown.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you, Reverend Chris Terry. I really appreciate you spending a little time with us, and we'll be in touch.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Built on the premise that one person can make a difference, Tough Angels assist in creating safe havens for women and children of violence in developing countries, providing to help educate them and support them in restoring dignity, hope, and healing. And you can help by participating in the Tough Angels Wedding Ring Project. Repurpose old wedding rings, jewelry, rings, whether broken or missing parts. Through a unique arrangement, Tough Angels can receive full refinery price, making your donations go even farther. To mail your old jewelry, visit their website, toughangels.org. That's toughangels.org. Or call them at 303-880-8086. That's 303-880-8086. toughangels.org. One person can make a difference. Visit them at toughangels.org.
Join spiritual teacher and medium Jennifer Farmer for a special summer evening of love and spirit communication. It's Jennifer's Celebration of Spirit Gallery, Thursday, July 19th from 7 to 9 p.m. First, Jennifer will prepare you for a powerful evening of connection to spirit with a conscious shifting meditation, followed by her sharing her amazing gift of mediumship, giving readings to select audience members from their loved ones, animals, and the angels. And as a special gift, Jennifer is offering Bring a Friend free. Simply buy your ticket before June 30th and you can bring a friend free. But hurry, seats are limited. Tickets are $49 each. To purchase yours, go to jenniferfarmer.com. That's jenniferfarmer.com and click on calendar. Don't miss the Celebration of Spirit Gallery with Jennifer Farmer. Plus, if you buy your tickets before June 30th, you can bring a friend for free. This gallery will be held in the First Community Bank Community Room in Richardson. Order your tickets online now by going to jenniferfarmer.com. That's jenniferfarmer.com and click on calendar. Crystals, cards, oils, books, DVDs, herbs. Where can you find all of this and more? Miracles of Joy in Louisville. A caring, peaceful place. And the staff at Miracles of Joy is knowledgeable and can provide you with the answers to and supplies for every metaphysical question or concern. Workshops, classes, readings, healings, and spiritual tools needed to guide you on your path to enlightenment. Miracles of Joy is easy to find at 701 South Orchard Lane in Louisville, Texas. Open Wednesday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Sundays, noon to 7 p.m. Find them on the internet at galactichealing.org. That's galactichealing.org. Or call them at 972-221-8080. That's 972-221-8080. Together we can raise our consciousness to find our direct connection to the God within. It's Dallas' oldest and most trusted psychic fair. Since 1979, the Dallas Psychic Fair has been providing North Texas with over 75 different professional psychics, wellness practitioners, and vendors, plus workshops, classes, and galleries, all in one convenient location on the first Sunday of every month at the Doubletree Hotel, 4099 Valley View Lane in Dallas. All readings are just $15. Admission just $7. Go online for a $2 off admission coupon. And to pre-book and pay for your readings, go to DallasPsychicFair.com. That's DallasPsychicFair.com. The Dallas Psychic Fair, spiritual growth through mind, body, and soul connections. The Dallas Psychic Fair is produced by Enterprises. Career consultant and life coach, Maureen McDonald has helped hundreds of individuals and families navigate a job loss, career transition, or job search in this difficult economy. And she can help you too, whether it's adjusting to leaving the military and entering civilian life, just graduating college, or simply reinventing yourself. She can work with you locally or via Skype. Her services also include interview prep, professional resumes, cover and follow-up letters, and much more. To get Maureen working for you, contact her at 817-449-5800. That's 817-449-5800. Once again, 817-449-5800. Or you can email her at mcdonaldmaureen16@yahoo.com. Give your career that extra edge. Call Maureen McDonald today at 817-449-5800.
Hi, I'm Tracy Brown. Please join me here on Spiritual Journeys Radio Network for Spiritual Practices That Work. Together, we'll experience inner peace, we'll learn how to be calm in a crisis, recognize and honor our connection to spirit, and so much more. So join me here on Spiritual Journeys Radio Network. If you are ready to attract what you want and release the rest, I'll see you right here, Tuesday evenings, 9 p.m. Central.
This is Spiritual Journeys Radio Network.
Everybody sing Namaste, 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 Namaste.
Okay, I hope you're ready for the Spiritual Practices Makeover for today. Here's what this person sent me in email. Dear Tracy, life is good. I've experienced a huge turnaround in my life in the past year. My job is going well. My love life is perfect. My kids are doing well in school. And I really don't have anything to worry about. This is the first time in my adult life that I've been so happy. Are there spiritual practices I can do to help me sustain this? Signed, Happy and Loving It. I love this question because so often we only think about doing spiritual practice when things aren't going well, and we look at it as a quick fix. But the reality is it's our sustained spiritual practices that actually help us be in a good place no matter what is going on in our lives. What's Happy and Loving It is talking about is, okay, things are going really well. How do I reinforce that? And I do believe that our daily practices, whether we meditate every day, whether every week we choose different affirmations, whatever we do on a regular basis is a part of what sustains our joy. So let me talk about that for a minute, because I think there is a difference between being happy and having joy. So happy is in response to the external conditions around us, or what's going on and how we react to that. And in my belief, joy is within us or comes from within us, and we always have access to it. Sometimes people laugh because on my website, reclaimjoy.com, I have a little tagline that says, no matter what situation you're in, you can find joy from within. And so I think that being happy all the time may not be possible, but no matter what is going on, you can be in joy. So part of what I would recommend as a spiritual practices makeover in this situation is to begin to notice the difference between happiness and joy, and to enjoy being happy, to appreciate that things are going well and there are not a lot of hiccups in her life right now or in his life right now. But when there are things that happen, because it is life, so when someone does something you don't like or things are not going as smoothly as you'd like them to, you can still choose joy. Specific spiritual practices that might be helpful in this situation are definitely one of our standards and good old standbys of affirmations. And so an affirmation that is along the lines of, my life is happy, joyous, and free, or I am happy, joyous, and free. It's easy to say when things are going well, and the more you say it, the more you attract that. Another good affirmation might be, I love my life. And in this case, because happy and loving it would be starting to use that affirmation at a time when that's true, it becomes reinforced again and again and again. Another spiritual practice that's more concrete that might be helpful is to create a vision board. A lot of times, again, we do vision boards when things aren't working and we think, oh, let me instead visualize what I want instead of now. And I think if I were in a place where I was saying I'm happy and loving it, that would be a fabulous jumping off point. So do a vision board about what you want to create going forward and look at it every day. And be reminded, not only is your life good right here, right now, but there's even more good to come. That the good of today is simply a beginning point for the future. Some of you may have heard the song that Gary Floyd, Robin Hackett, and Cornell Kinderconnect wrote called You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. And that's my message for happy and loving it. You ain't seen nothing yet. And your happiness today is simply the starting point for tomorrow. Now, if you would like to receive a Spiritual Practices Makeover, email me at tracy@reclaimjoy.com or just visit me on Facebook at facebook.com/spiritual practices.
This is Spiritual Journeys Radio Network.
Each week on Spiritual Practices That Work, we'll have a segment called Highly Recommended. And in Highly Recommended, you will be exposed to books, CDs, DVDs, websites, and other resources that might help you deepen your own spiritual practice. So, it's time now for this week's Highly Recommended. I'm going to share with you some of my favorite resources that, for me personally, helped me go deeper, helped me develop stronger spiritual practices, or expand my vocabulary of spiritual practice. And the first one is a book. It's Alan Cohen's A Deep Breath of Life, Daily Inspiration for Heart-Centered Living. And like many other books that are laid out in a format where there is a quotation or an affirmation and maybe even commentary for every day of the year, that's the format for A Deep Breath of Life. There is, for every day of the year, 365 days of the year, there is a quotation. Alan Cohen writes some inspiring or motivational message, and he ends it with one or more affirmations. So it's not the format that's so unusual, but for me, this book, using it for a full year, made such a positive difference in my life. And it was amazing how many days I would open it to that calendar day, and it would, of course, be the perfect message for me. I was first exposed to this book more than a dozen years ago, and I will tell you, at least 4 years, I have used the book for the whole year. And in all the other years, I pick it up several times a year and maybe use it for a day or a week. I've opened it up at random to March 20th. Pray to be wrong is the headline. Would you rather be right or happy? And that's a quotation from A Course in Miracles. And Alan Cohen writes a 3-paragraph commentary about that and tells a story about his own experience. And at the end it says, I pray to be humble enough to see a grander picture than the one I have known. And the affirmation is, I open my mind to live in a bigger universe. A dose of that every day on very practical matters is what made this book stand out for me. It had a tremendous impact. The second highly recommended resource is a CD, and it is a CD by the artist Marcy Hamm, Marcy M-A-R-C-E-Y, Hamm, H-A-M-M. She has several sound CDs. She has created a body of work that is sound music, but it's created in such a way. She has a fascinating story of having been a scientist who had a life-changing experience, and the music and composing music is something that she came into in her adult life. And the reason I recommend Z, and actually any of her CDs, but specifically Z, is because I had an amazing experience with Z. I went on a 2-day self-development, personal development retreat out at a campground in East Texas. And the part of the retreat included high and low ropes exercises for both team building and for personal development, building more confidence in oneself. And after the first day, after the first full day, all of us were aching and hurting. We had done all kinds of physical activities, and I'll tell you, it was amazing. Someone had the Z CD by Marcy Hamm and put it in the CD player as we all went to sleep and put it on repeat so it would play over and over again all night, quietly. And when I woke up the next morning, I had been so sore the night before and exhausted. I woke up earlier than I normally do. I woke up feeling completely rested. My mind was clear. My body didn't hurt. And I didn't want to accept that this music was that healing. But I did buy the CD. And over and over again, when I play that CD, if there is anything hurting, any pain, it is reduced. It helps me breathe more clearly. It removes all the distractions. And at some level, it is connecting in way deeper than mental thought. So I highly recommend Z by Marcy Hamm to encourage and to sustain and to support the spiritual practice of self-healing, of releasing physical, emotional, and mental pain or distraction. It will support you in doing all of that. A third highly recommended is the book Hope for the Flowers by Trina Paulus. It's a classic. It has been around for decades, and it still is effective. And I recommend this book. If you're not familiar with it, some people just call it the yellow book, or some people call it the yellow butterfly book, but it's called Hope for the Flowers. It's a great story, but the reason I recommend it for spiritual practice is because in reading the book, you are reminded that life is a process. And as you are noticing things in your life that require total transformation, and it's scary, and you don't know how it's going to turn out, the story in the book gives you confidence and gives you the reminder that you cannot become a butterfly if you stay a caterpillar. I will tell you, I read this book at least once a year. And in years where there's a lot of change going on in my life, I keep it on my nightstand. A couple of more quick resources for you to keep in mind. Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life. I love that because it reminds me in my spiritual practice again that I have the ability to support my own healing, that the answer for what's going on with me is inside of me. And in the You Can Heal Your Life book, Louise Hay has captured a lot of the connections between our physical maladies and what's going on with us on a metaphysical level, or on an emotional level. In addition to making the connections, she recommends affirmations that can be effective in helping us reduce anything that we are contributing on a subconscious level and shift us into healing and supporting our own healing. Now, this is not instead of Western medicine, but it is a way to use spiritual practice to support whatever it is that we are doing to heal our mental, physical, or emotional bodies. And the last recommendation, highly recommended resource that I will share with you tonight is the CD Transcendence by Michael Bernard Beckwith. Now, this is a very recent addition. This CD came out in 2011, but already it has become one of my most favored tools and resources. What the Transcendence CD does is it takes 8 of Michael Beckwith talks and transforms them by creating music that supports the rhythm and the message of the talk. And it's very high energy. 8 of the 9 cuts on the CD are all about dancing and moving, which is also good for your spiritual practice. But the message is solid and inspiring and motivational and spiritual. So the combination of the moving and the singing and the hearing the message all combined together as a practice to move from being stuck to moving to another place, another milestone. The very first song on the CD is An Adventure in Paradise, and Reverend Michael says, I'm taking an adventure in paradise, and guess what? I'm taking you with me. And so what I hope is that in me sharing these highly recommended resources to you, that I am sharing a little bit of what helps me experience heaven on earth. And I hope I can take you with me on that journey, not only with these resources, but also every week on Spiritual Practices That Work. Well, that's it for today's Spiritual Practices That Work. I want to thank Reverend Chris Terry from Heartspace for spending a little bit of time with me, and I hope that the Spiritual Practices Makeover and the highly recommended segments just give you a little taste of what is to come in future shows. We'll be looking at all kinds of spiritual practices. We'll be talking to a variety of people from all over the United States about how they use spiritual practices to resolve challenges related to forgiveness, challenges related to health, how they use spiritual practices simply to take their good life and make it even better. So please join us again next week for Spiritual Practices That Work. I'm Tracy Brown, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
You're listening to Spiritual Journeys Radio Network. Music and programming for your spiritual journey.